If you've seen any of my videos previously, you'll know that I'm an advocate for using the gear that you have to shoot the stuff that you want to go out and shoot. But what I would say with this camera is, if you've got the money and you want to stick with Pentax, or even if you want to come over to Pentax now, then I would say this is definitely a worthy upgrade. Okay, so we're out today with the K3 Mark III, as I'm getting used to this camera, and of course the 55 to 300 PLM. And the purpose of today's video is basically to just give my thoughts on the last video where I was at the motocross track and I was testing out the camera since I'd updated the firmware from version 1.5 to version 2.01. Now I do know that there's a newer firmware update actually being released, and it was released, I think it was like 3 days after I'd actually updated the firmware, so I might need to do this all over again. But today, yes, I just wanted to talk about the improvements that I've noticed in regards to the autofocus system. And just while I'm talking here, I've come down the river, as you can see, and we've had a lot of rainfall. If you could hear that noise there, it's pretty crazy the amount of water that's come down overnight. And that's scary, to be honest. I've never really seen a river like that before. Back to the autofocus, or the autofocus improvements that I've seen in the new firmware update. Again, 2.01 that I'm running. So what I was doing was testing the trackability and also the sensitivity of the autofocus, different modes that you could use, the different parameters. You're probably best off going watching that video, because what I did is I did 3 separate tests shooting the same type of subject, which was motocross bikes coming directly towards the camera, and I wanted to see how the camera dealt with that, tracking and keeping hold of the focus on the subject while obviously the rider on the motocross bike was travelling at speed towards myself shooting the camera. In the past, Pentax has had a little bit of a problem with this, and a lot of people have mentioned it. I was always one of those type of people who used to want to go against the grain and prove people wrong, and to an extent, you know, sort of did that with the K3, the K5 and the K70, showing that you can actually shoot sports with Pentax. But, you know, I did find that there was limitations with that and what can be done, and this was one of them. It was the subjects coming directly towards you. So basically the bottom and the short of it is that there's been massive improvements with this camera and the new autofocus modes that you can choose from. It's really in depth, lots of different options that you can choose depending on the scene, the subject, the type of subject that you're shooting, the speeds that they're travelling, all of that. It's right up there now, I would say, with a Canon 7D Mark II or a Nikon D500. I will state now though that I've never used a Nikon D500, but I do own a Canon 7D Mark II, and I will be doing a sort of a side-by-side video between those two cameras, the K3 Mark III and the 7D Mark II, because I think it'll be interesting for people to see how far Pentax have come. And I really do believe that in terms of DSLR cameras anyway, APS-C DSLR cameras, that they're definitely up there now in terms of being able to shoot sports and moving subjects. As I say, I tested 3 different sets of parameters. The mode 1 to 3, I think it was, and on the sensitivity it was from 1 to 5. Number 5 being for erratic subjects, and the camera's constantly tracking, trying to grab focus and keep the subject in focus, and number 1 being for subjects that can move but are pretty much stationary or slow moving subjects. And again, on the other side of things, with the different modes, it was type 1, 2 and 3. It uses the AE sensor in this camera on one of the modes, and then the autofocus sensor on the 2 others. And on the one what it uses the AE sensor, it also uses the autofocus sensor. But I was playing around all day, I got a lot of shots, and I was blown away, to be honest. It's the first time that I've ever shot with a Pentax camera with, again, the subjects coming directly towards me, and it's tracked them without missing a beat. And it actually did this in all of the different variations I tried. And the only times that the camera did miss focus on any of the shots was down to user error. It was because I was too close to some grass verge in front of me, and there was a strand of grass, and the camera, for one frame I think it was, when a rider was coming towards me, did latch onto the grass, but then it picked back up straight away on the rider after that. And you know, I'm going to say that partly, obviously that's down to the new autofocus system inside this camera, but partly that's because this PLM lens, the 55-300, is able to focus so fast. Like, it's just instant. And it's fairly similar to the USM lenses that I've been using, or the one USM lens that I have for the Canon 7D Mark II, the 70-200 f4. And I'd be very interested to see how the Pentax, I think it's the DFA 70-210 f4 lens would perform on this, because, you know, you've got the constant f4 throughout the focal length, and your settings are not going to change, where when I'm zooming in and out on this goes to f6.3 from 4.5 at the short end and f6.3 at the long end, and I didn't notice it made too much of a problem until I'd used that f4 lens, the 70-200 Canon lens, and I've actually come to appreciate that your larger apertures actually make a difference in your shots. Now, I think the Pentax lens could be as equally good, and I'm sure it will be. And that's what I'd like to have a test out on, if I could get a hold of one. If you're listening, Pentax, if I could get a hold of one of them and chuck it on this camera body, I think that it'd be a weapon, basically. It'd be a good tool for the job, for the type of stuff that I'd be shooting there. If you didn't get it, I'll just sum it up right now. Pentax autofocus is right up there. It's improved massively. And if you've seen any of my videos previously, you'll know that I'm an advocate for using the gear that you have to shoot the stuff that you want to go out and shoot. And if it's doing a good enough job, I don't really see a reason to upgrade. But what I would say with this camera is, if you've got the money and you want to stick with Pentax, or even if you want to come over to Pentax now, if you have the money, then I would say this is definitely a worthy upgrade from any of the Pentax cameras that's gone before it. That includes the KP, the K70, the K3, K3 Mark II, the K1. I've never shot full frame, but in terms of the stuff that I like to shoot, this thing is without a doubt the best Pentax camera that's been made for that, which is no surprise. But I would definitely say yes, if you have the money, then, you know, I'd do it. And you might have seen a video that I made a few years back when this camera was first released, and I had a lot of qualms and, you know, as you do, questions about it and the price point and stuff like that. But I think this has actually changed my mind a little bit on the camera, now having used it myself for the type of stuff that I shoot. It has changed my mind a little bit, and I know that if I was in the market for a new Pentax camera, I would definitely be looking at this now, definitely. And I know a lot of you guys said that I wouldn't want to give it back, and I don't. It's a really good camera. But overall, I've just touched on the autofocus of this camera so far. It's just, there's so much to do inside this camera. It's totally different from the previous ones. But again, if you haven't seen that video while I'm talking about the tests that I did, head over, watch that one now, let us know what you think, and see if you agree with my opinions on the K3 Mark III. Just have a look at the images that were taken of the riders coming directly towards you to the camera with no editing. I just put an Adobe color profile on there, the standard Adobe color profile. I didn't do anything. I just it was purely down for autofocus testing that video. So head over there, watch that one, and I'll see you in the next video.